Pink Cloud Radio 67. And, really, going into a lot of different things here. Gifts aren't frivolous things. They're very necessary. They're demonstrations of love and affection, and their excess makes life more than mere drudgery. But what is life but mere drudgery, huh? You can do without many things, but not gifts, however small and insignificant they might seem. I think that's true. It holds true. And I think a lot of times that could be one of the issues that forums is about gifts being like, that person didn't think about me that much, and kind of using that aspect to, base a relationship off of. And I think sometimes that's the issue. That certain people will like certain things one way, other people wouldn't. And that's why a lot of people say, like, I'm picky about my men, I'm picky about women, I'm picky about who I'm with, like, I wouldn't be with this type of person, but I'd be okay with this type of person. And, like, those kind of things are kind of like what's perpetuating a lot of how people are. And I think a lot of times that's where people think of themselves. That's why I say, like, I kind of agree with this statement. I don't think it's that important, honestly. But because it's something that should be known already. I don't need to explain it. That's why I think it's not important. Because I see more in it already. That's why I just sent it, because I agreed with it. But I think that also it's... that gifts are really something else at the moment. Like, it's hard to see the importance of a gift when there's so much material substance. It is, Like, I could say this as much as I wanted, that gifts aren't frivolous, and gifts, no matter how small and insignificant, they're important. But it doesn't matter, because it's still material substance that you're looking at only, sadly. And I think that's what can be the problem. Your heart may go into it, but it doesn't mean somebody else can see your heart, That's what it means, but, if no one sees your heart before you do something, if all they see is the material, then they would never see your heart. But just as much, maybe they don't see their own heart, maybe they don't see anybody's heart. I mean, I could just point out to the fact that possibly that's why a lot of people are single now. Or at least either in bad relationships or were, and now they're staying single. And I think that's like a very important point, a capitulating point about what is repeating. If you let things repeat, you're choosing to, But a lot of people don't like to take the blame. They like putting it on other people and saying, well, I don't want to be involved anymore. Well, I mean, at the same point, that's fine, but let's say somebody truly has interest in you and you're basically knocking them off because of something else that you did. That's what I wouldn't do. But I don't know exactly what else to do at certain times. I'm not saying that I know enough, because I don't. But at the same time, it's also because there's specific reasons for everything. Sometimes it's not even about not giving somebody an opportunity. Like for me personally, when things ended for certain people in past years, especially in the last few years, in the last year or so, or more than last year, but a lot of things just ended because of just the pure scapegoat of it, being treated as such, and seeing that, that's where people forget of noticing anything. That's when you gotta go, clearly, it's the being lost in the echoes, like in the song by Linkin Park recently on their last album, the first song. It's about that. It's about being lost in the echoes of somebody else's past, I think that's what it means personally. When you're lost in the echoes, it doesn't necessarily have to do about the past. Sometimes you treat somebody that you know now as if they're the person in the past. And to me, that's not on its own. That shows a lot of what you support and what you don't support, and what you're looking at and what you're not looking at. You have a right to do so, no denial there, But it's hard to establish some kind of other condition besides what you're saying. Like, if you're saying that this person isn't taking you seriously, that's fine. But you're also denying that person something of treating that person seriously. Because maybe you're not treating them seriously, maybe it's not them. You know, that's the thing that I've noticed sometimes. And I think when you get down to gifts and all this stuff, sometimes the gift of knowing somebody is not enough. And that's why I would say, like, if you need excess stuff, then do you really need somebody else there to notice it, you know? It's just like, you know, between guessing and knowing is a long, dark tunnel. It's true, you know. You know, you can guess all you want, but knowing it doesn't come from guess, you know. You could be right, could be wrong, but it matters how you use that, you know. And I thought about that this week, because I was looking at what had happened recently. And, like, how people, especially families, members, can use something and say, well, you don't get mad at friends like you do with me, or you don't get arguments with friends like you do with me. That's not true. In fact, there are many friends who I did, and they didn't like it. They left, but they had already gotten to the point where they were getting insecure with me and and deriding me and putting me down in their own way. So I spoke up, but I had spoken up before that too. So technically, all I did was speak my view more. Not to say I didn't before that, but it got to a point where I was able to express even better. Let's just put it that way. And I think that's a good thing. Of course, the person doesn't think so, because, well, you're speaking something and I don't believe. That's fine, you know. I think we're getting to a point where people are very unaccepting of a lot of things, unless you know it, you know. And even if you know it, that's not enough. Pretty much, it either has to be, if I think it's wrong to think that way, then it's obviously wrong. Like, for me, I don't think it's wrong to think the opposite way. I think a lot of times it's ignorant if you're treating somebody else's view in a bad way. Yeah, of course. Because I don't think in just two-sided roads. I don't think in just those kind of methods, because, you know, thinking in the Manichaean sort of form of good and bad, no, you gotta have good and bad. But you can't just have one, you know, you can't just concentrate on one or the other and say that this one's better than this. It's a lesser two evils. Because then there isn't good and bad. You're pointing out that this one is evil too. You know, and that's why I never understood that when people said, oh, you know, there's good and bad. No, there isn't. There's evil or less evil. That's it. You know, unless you want to cut off ties completely from all that stuff, it's not going to end. And I think that's the one thing that I've learned too, especially, you know, guessing and knowing stuff. You know, that's just a guess, you know, you don't know for sure. Well, yeah, but because sometimes people use that and say, like, well, you don't know everything, Marcello. Well, nobody does. Even the people that you believe don't know everything. Like, even the side that you believe, or the story of the world that you believe, doesn't know everything. So you're telling me I don't know everything. Well, good. You know, I wouldn't want to know everything, because then I'd probably even be more sickened to my stomach. You know, there's only so much you can hold in when it comes down to it, when you see how people are being treated, literally. Not just seeing how we create this idea of what I saw recently that Obama said to army troops in, 2011, I think it was, that, you know, the way we fight, the way we do things, it's very different from the old empires, where you have them looking for resources and controls and all that. We're doing things because it's the right thing, the good thing to do. We're doing the exact same thing as those old empires. We're not doing anything different. But people will ride along with things, you know. It's the same thing the people in the Roman Empire did. Many of them, there were people who didn't agree with it too, but at the time, it didn't matter, because there was hardly any voice, you know, of the public. And, like, at that point, it had already been broken down in the system itself, so the fact is that most will fail here, because it already has before. You know, if you need evidence of why all these systems break down, look at the past. That's all you need to look at. You don't need to look at anything else. You don't need to look at what somebody currently is saying about the old empires and the difference now. There isn't any. They use the same system every time. It failed. It failed. You know, that's why a lot of people say, well, you gotta have some people that, you know, have to die for all this stuff. Some people? More than some people have died. Obviously, you're not looking at the numbers, and obviously you're not looking at what matters most. Because if you accept the rationale becomes what you need. And it never goes away. You know, that's what I mean. Rationalization is probably one of the worst examples of, you know, trying to get people to accept certain terms of life. Like, oh, it's rational to have war. Well, no, it's not. Never been rational. It's been the usual, but it's never been the rational thing to do. It's a choice, you know. It's a very choice thing. But I think that's the easy way out to a lot of people, is that, well, what if we just attack them back? Well, there you go. Easy answer right there, buddy. You know, you split two rocks with a single blow. And that's what you do, you know. You just split two rocks with a single blow. You know, because you don't want to deal with that rock. So you take away two rocks, you know. That's what vengeance and attacking somebody back is about, you know, is going through more than just one. So all the wars that we've had since 9/11, for example, we've split more than two rocks, that's for sure. But, you know, I'm not only condemning America. All of the countries have worked together. That's why we're even at this point in the prism world that we are in. Because we basically accepted the terms of reality and said that, well, we can't break this cycle. Well, technically, it wasn't about breaking the cycle. It was about leaving the cycle completely. Don't break it, you know. Let it have its fruition, because it will continue. It doesn't mean we have to be a part of that cycle anymore or try to stop it, because that's not going to set anything straight either. You know, if all we want to do is just break the cycle. You know, because when you split two rocks with one blow, you can't really say, you know, that you fixed the problem. You know, you can say you split two rocks, but that's about it. You've only split two rocks, you know. It's the same thing between guessing and knowing, that you could guess all you want, you can know all you want, but it doesn't really matter. Like, let's say you're right about the guessing and another person's right about knowing. Doesn't change anything about anybody else, you know. There's a long dark tunnel that we're always going to be in. But sadly, most of those dark tunnels are filled with a lot of different things that mostly this society uses to get their answers. And that's one thing that's never changed. That's why people say, like, oh, we gotta watch out for all these people around the world. Well, why? Why do we have to watch out for them? Because I have to worry about death? But death is gonna come for everyone. At some point in my lifetime, I'm gonna be dead, you know? So I think that's why I can't I wouldn't say let this fear circle up on me, but I can't let the idea of death justify people treating my rights or doing something to protect me or have security for me. I can't let that happen because of it. But a lot of people do, so, you know, the self-ownership, the individuality, that kind of stuff that I talked about last time, which I know, I don't mean to attack, like, and try to say that sexual orientation and all that stuff is not good to have, but I think if you're looking for support in a higher system, then that's, you know, you obviously believe that higher system, you need that support. Do you really need that support from the higher system? Like, literally. I personally wouldn't understand that, but I could see it from a standpoint of using that system. And I guess that's where I kind of think of it as, that it's not really like something that everybody would need, but it is something to look at, you know, and it always will be, you know. Sadly, a lot of our system of contentment comes from that, is that, well, maybe these people will agree. Because, see, that's the thing. If you're, like, most of the people just want support in their individual lives. And when they don't get it, they look somewhere else. That's why a lot of people are looking at DOMA and all this stuff right now, recently. In my lifetime of things and infringements, that's what you do, you know. But it's, you know, you don't need to look for that if other people agree with it. Like, for me, that's why I'm cut down, because I definitely accept people, because nobody's used to that, you know. I've been cut down a lot because I accept people, and when you do that, sometimes you get a harsher takedown because people aren't used to that. They're not used to, hey, this guy really accepts me. And so because of that, you get this idea of what people kind of expect from, like, you know, getting a solution from the problem. That a lot of people will use the technique of devising some sort of plan, one of my favorites, to try to establish the kind of person you are. And not only that, that it's what they don't think about. It's what they don't talk about, like people and secrets in general. Like, that's what gets us into all this stuff, you know. When people say, like, oh, well, this stuff happens because we're not doing something right here in our system, that people take it so personally. But there's actually something else underneath that. Like, that's why people have the ability to just go into war and just do anything they fucking want. Because they think it's personal. They think it's a personal judgment on them. But in fact, that's why all this other evidence of conspiracy and other stuff of working with those governments that our country and other countries have done with all each other, sleeping in bed with everybody, that it's those things that are the problem. The people and secrets in that. You know, those involvements, the people in, you know, secret societies, which are just, you know, it's just another name for another Facebook. Like, it's just a social network. That's all it is. But it matters who's involved in those social networks. It's a matter of what they're doing with that. And within that. It's that if they're involved with that, there's obviously some kind of purpose to keep it in the objective mode of a secret. It doesn't mean that it has to be something overly evil. But for me personally, I believe humans are far more capable of bad things than good. Because I've seen more of bad things from humans. So when people say, like, people are so capable of good, they are. But people are very capable of bad too, because they've been doing that for a long time. So I'm not going to be far-fetched enough to just say, well, people wouldn't do that, because they're in front of the cameras, they're in front of the thing. Well, that's just cameras. That's like Hollywood, you know, you could make anything look good. At this point, you don't even need to worry at this point. You got everything by the balls at that point. And sometimes it never worked early on, so you could see the difference now compared to before. Compared to when, like, Nixon and Kennedy had their debate. How they looked, you know, everything that came out up to now. When you look at things. And you see a huge difference. But all you need to do is make a joke. You know, you don't need to take anything, somebody that actually is asking a question or making a point, seriously. All you need to do is just make a joke about it. And everybody laughs. But that's about it. And this whole thing, break. And I think that's what I meant by what we clever ourselves up to be. You know, when we do things. Got called. But, to be fair, and I don't want to say this unclear, because people have, and I wouldn't know exactly what to say in establishing some other way, you know? Because I think when I am trying to say something harsh, or am trying to say something real, or am trying to say something that, you know, like gifts aren't frivolous, that all these things are important, or that between guessing and knowing is a long tunnel, or that, you know, you split two rocks, or it's what they don't talk about, Because it is what they don't talk about, you know? I'm not trying to say that I'm trying to be better than you in that way. Because they don't have to talk about everything, you know? And that's the whole point of systems in general. That they don't need to talk about everything, you know? And that's where I personally believe that our governments and people in power can do things bad. Because they don't need to talk about everything. It's a choice. The choice is shown in what people's attitudes are, especially now, to things on computers. Like saying that our government, you can't find stuff like that on the internet and believe it. There's a lot of stuff on the internet you can find that are official documents of our government that's been officially released and declassified that shows what our government is capable of doing. Whether it's something that was created but never funded to do, or it was something that actually occurred that our government did itself to make another country look bad. But it's okay because that country was doing bad to us. They were doing bad to us. It doesn't mean they were even doing anything to hurt us, technically, but the fact is they're a different system, so that makes them bad to America. And so it makes it bad to the world. See, we're the creator of the official document of what the world can consist of. You can't create something more than that, or something different from that. You can only consist of the ideas and relations that agree with us. That's where the things of, it's what they don't talk about, of people and secrets and stuff like that. Well, there's a lot of stuff that they don't talk about. Even getting our own ways, or having the two-sided, pentagram, or having the idea of saying that our government wouldn't do that. You're defending the possibility that has already been shown to be wrong. That already is shown that there's so much corruption already. So you're telling me that stopped? There's been more camouflage of what a government does because of what they've already done. Iran-Contra only helped that, for example, which it shows now that they actually cover up more things because of it. There's now... They weren't mad about what was uncovered. They were mad about that people talked about it, that it was even found out. That's why, you had people in power saying, hey, we can't let these secrets get out. Really? Yes, we should, because if our government's doing this, we need to know about it. But all they were saying was you can't let these secrets get out. What are other countries going to do with these secrets? Find out who's gangplanking them. That's it. Find out who's treating them like shit. Yeah, but if they find out that, they might do something to us. Then maybe we should leave them alone. Wouldn't that be an interesting result to see what happens then? Because Cuba hasn't done anything to us, yet still we're holding over them what happened back then. With Russia and everything. We're still holding that over. One incident. And holding over to them still. Saying, they shouldn't have done that. Jeez, how much more longer are you going to hold that over people? See, that's just like a parent right there. See, that's the thing about what I see between parents and politics and everything in general. It all starts with that individuality. Do you want to be an individual, or do you want to be based off your revenge and bullying of somebody because of one thing they did? And it's the same idea with me, mes amis. You look at my grandma, for example. She'll say, and she says recently to me, "Oh, you're just, you were brainwashed by Jean-Pierre, my brother." I wish. I wouldn't need to argue with my grandma if that was true. I wouldn't need to speak my view if I was just brainwashed by somebody else. I wish it was that easy. I wouldn't need to say a word to my grandma then. Wouldn't need to. I wouldn't need to speak any words at all. I wish it was that easy. But I actually have my own point of view and have to defend it. My grandma won't. Mamina won't defend it at all. And the showing is what she's saying right there. If she's saying I'm brainwashed by somebody else, right there and then, I have to defend my own point of view. Because she wouldn't, because she doesn't agree with Jean-Pierre. But seeing that, she thinks everybody else is another Jean-Pierre. As with the fact of what she sees on Maury and Jerry Springer, and says about all women being whores and stuff and prostitutes. That's what they do. That's all women right there. So right in there, she's now trajectorying anybody who tries to discredit her or to go disagree with her as, you always disagree with me. No, I don't always disagree with you. I just don't have the same point of view as you. I actually didn't disagree that you're wrong. I just have a different point of view. And I've said that many times. So who's going to defend it? You're going to defend my point of view? It doesn't sound like you would. Especially if you're telling me I just disagree with you. No, I actually point out another point of view. But I never say, hey, I bet I'm right. I never use that as a criticization of what you feel. Of what you want to do. If you want to do something, you do it, Mamina. So you have to allow me that too. That presence in life doesn't happen. At a certain point, you can only teach people so much. And I think it's discrediting the person you grew up if all you're going to do is do that the rest of their lives. Now, that's my personal belief. I understand that some people want to hold on, but it's very different to hold on and treat them like they're doing something wrong. There's a big difference. And I think a lot of times that's where the kaleidoscope of life, you can't have any colors in life. I'm not, it's like telling somebody, this is the color you can only look at. You can't look at any other color except this color. Well then, what's the point? My wings will not grow, and if I have to use a form of religious icon, I guess you could say, or idolatry, I guess you could say even, with yuck. But if you use that, you can definitely say that you can't grow out of things if you're just going to tell people what to do. If you just want people to know one thing about you, and that's all they'll know. And that's all they'll ever know, because they'll keep using that to get their idea across, to get their motives across, to understand things better. They'll use certain methods and certain means to try to produce results. But that's their idea. That's what they want to do, and that's their choice, No one else is going to voice or go against something because of what they feel or what they... that's the thing about a lot of stuff like this, is that people do get tired out. It's true. And I think a lot of times that's what really happens with what's been happening over the years. A lot of this stuff, or a lot of what we feel, is based on what we've already seen. So if a person couldn't tell you they were fulfilled or not, it's better that it didn't work out, because they couldn't tell you anything else either. I believe that. And I think that's what happened. That's what's happening now within families. Oh man, so many families, they're so unhappy with either their children, their family lifestyle. They're unhappy with some part of it, and because of that, it already creates the kind of dogmatic sort of like, I'm not going to speak to this person anymore. Well, there's your problem. If you're not able to speak to a person that's right there in front of you, what's the point? And in a lot of ways, it's true. It's denying something of somebody that's there for you, from you even. Especially if you created that relationship to begin with, right there, you're basically saying, I'm not going to allow this person to be here, even though they're here all the time. I think that's one thing that I've learned. But it's something hard to produce, because a lot of people will put it down. And they'll say that, hey, you're wrong. You don't know what life's about. But that's a choice too, If you want to use that kind of motive to make your point, then you would. No one else can deny you of that. And I think that's what I've learned, especially about like being fulfilled or not. You have to say it, But in a lot of ways, if somebody doesn't want to deal with that, it's better it didn't work out. Because you couldn't get them to speak if they're fulfilled or not. Well, then you can't get them to speak anything else, Like, to me, it doesn't matter that I'm right or wrong. I love being wrong. I learned so much. But, and I mean that seriously. I do learn a lot when I'm wrong. But you can't learn much if you're just right and nobody wants to listen. And I don't mean that with ego. I mean that with, at least I take the time to think about it, At least take the time to put your feelings or put what you feel in me. It's what American Psycho, the movie I just watched recently, I watched it again. Oh, it's all about that. You can't empathize with others. People say show empathy with others, but people don't like that. Because once you do it, once you start taking the time to understand them, they get more upset with you. Because you're taking more time than they are to empathize with themselves. Like, I can definitely understand what that means now when you empathize with yourself. You need to do that, because no one else can produce that for you. And that's what I mean by being fulfilled. You have to say it. If you don't spend time to empathize with who you are as a person, then you'll hate somebody who actually does. I think that's the one thing that I've learned about what's happening now with parents and everything, and kids, and people in general, is that they don't spend the time, so now they're upset with anybody else who does. Like, oh, this person's caring. What a horrible thing to be, you know? It's sad, though, because that's what people kind of say is the truth. They don't even think about it in a different way. They look at it as a bad gesture because, oh, you don't try to get inside my head. I'm not. You do what you want, you know. I just spent the time to actually try to empathize and understand you more. You know, sorry that I did, you know. But I don't feel sorry about it because I took the time to actually care about you, and I'm sorry, you know. I'm sorry that it bothers you that I did. But I don't feel sorry for doing it because I wanted to. Because I felt as strongly as I did. You know, I guess you didn't feel as strongly as I did to, you know, help yourself. And I can't really tell you that's wrong because you wanted that. You want to live in this. You obviously don't want to take the time to understand that you need to feel good too. It has nothing to do with me, and it has very little to do with me. But if you're happy with me, you can't tell me, you can't discredit me by saying that I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be helping you. You know, if you want to discredit me like that, you know, you're going to. I can't stop you. And I think that's what really is the result of this. And sadly, it's, you know, it's a harder thing to look at because, you know, it's like saying if, that's what I mean by, you know, if you're not able to say you're fulfilled or not, well, that's really about empathy. You know, do you empathize with yourself or don't you? Because if you don't empathize with yourself, you're basically saying that you wouldn't even tell anybody else anything about yourself because you don't even spend the time to think about it for yourself. So there's nothing you can tell anybody else except for the manufactured material substance that's around you. And that's what you would use as a means to say, oh, well, this person is serious in this relationship with me, even though it's just about sex. It's true. Sadly, it's one of the truest things that I see. And that's what makes an easy relationship to a lot of people, the easy way out. Have sex with somebody. If it doesn't work out, you know, treat all men or treat all women badly or change sexual orientation or do this or do that. Don't actually look at yourself seriously and empathize with who you are. Just continue the onslaught. That's fine. You know, put that coin into that gambling machine. Have fun. I figured out that Mom and Mamina do have opposite personalities. Sometimes a person only sees themselves in their kids, even after they had left that place because of them. It's true. I see that with my mom and my Mamina all the time. And I think my mom really has a substance of her own character now. A lot more. There's a substance to her now. No material, substance. It's all in her. And I think a lot of times Mamina thinks because Mom agrees with her that she has the same attitude as her. Yet she'll always call her out on things that she doesn't have. And put her down. You know, it's sad because Mamina will put down Mom because she listens to her, but she's not like her. So she's happy that she has somebody close, but at the same time she's already converging on the opposite effect where it hurts her. You know, the idea of worry, for example. You know, oh, you can't stop me from worrying about my kids. That's true. But if I'm trying to make you feel better by giving you an option or another suggestion, don't worry about it more now. I didn't ask you to worry about it. I gave you a suggestion. You know, and then people say, oh, you got to calm down, Marcello. No, I don't. I have to defend my point of view. You won't defend it. If you want to defend my point of view, then maybe I'll calm down. But you never have. Not once have you defended my point of view. Not once. And because of that, you're not going to get me to... You can't just tell me to calm down. You have to understand that I have a different point of view than you. And if you don't want to understand that, and I mean that to a certain extent, you're still not understanding that. You're putting it as if you need to be above it, but you're not. You're just at the same level as me. You have your own point of view, I have my own. That's it. And we should be at equal levels because if you don't want to be at equal levels with me, what's the point? You know, you say that you have to live a certain way to survive in this world, and that's fine. But don't treat me as if I'm against you, because I'm not. I have a different point of view than you. That doesn't mean I disagree with you. I think you're completely right because you have to live that way, but I don't. I don't have to live with worry. That's why I get upset with you. That's why I argue with you, because you worry as if I have to. Let me take care of that worry. Let me be responsible for it. Because if something happens, you can blame it on me. I don't care. But you have to allow me to do that. If you're not going to allow me to make mistakes or not worry, if you want me to worry like you, it's not going to happen, Mina. Sorry. 26 here. If I'm not worrying at this point, I have a hard presentation value that says that I won't learn to worry. Sorry, And you said, well, if you have kids, you'll change. Well, if. You gotta have somebody to have kids with. You gotta understand that point too. Because if that doesn't happen at all, for example, anybody out there can believe this, nothing's gonna change in me then. At this point, there's a lot of stuff in my personality that I think you can't gain a lot if you do that, though. Especially if you coddle them in that way. If you want to teach your kids, you have to teach them. So that means that I honestly wish Jean-Pierre, that is, for example, with Jean-Pierre, that Mamina says he'll change when he has kids. He wouldn't do things like that. Okay. That's fine, But that's the whole point, is that if you need to be right all the time, especially by saying, I bet, I bet this is going to happen, then you don't really believe what you're telling me. So I have to defend my own point of view because you're lying to me, and at the same time you're saying that you're right, without saying you're right. It's the same thing that you're telling me, that I have to be right. That, you always disagree with me. So what? If I always disagree with you, you should be used to it by now. Shouldn't bother you, But it seems like it bothers you a lot. And you tell me that you're brainwashed by Jean-Pierre. Oh, yeah. I mean, if I was brainwashed by Jean-Pierre, I wouldn't need to speak to you. I wouldn't even need to tell you how I feel. Because to me, that's why I do speak to you, because I need you to know how I feel. But you discredit me by saying, oh, well, you're brainwashed by Jean-Pierre. Thanks a lot, Thanks a lot for, you're the one who grew me up, just like with Mom. So if I was brainwashed, it was mostly by you two. You're actually teaching me to defend myself the way you are. Of course, I would never say, I bet, because I don't need to be right. I love being wrong because I learn the most. But you gotta allow me to be wrong too. If something was going to happen where I was going to be kicked out, stuff like that, first off, like I said, you have to give me very good evidence of it. You can't just say, well, this is what I see here. No, I don't need to see what you see. I need to see things differently. And you need to allow me to see things differently. I don't have the same eyes as you. Doesn't mean I don't think, it just means I think a lot differently. I think a lot differently. And you need to accept that. If you don't want to accept that, just like with all of you out there. That's why I lost a lot of friendships, because, like, for example, Mamina would say that I don't argue with other people. Yeah, right. Yes, I do. Especially if they allow it. It comes in. And a lot of times people get pretty pissed off. That's why I lost a lot of friendships too, because they didn't like that I had my own point of view. They were like, oh, this guy has a point of view? I'm out of here. Well, and that's why it ended too, because they were annoyed with something that they shouldn't be annoyed with. They should be accepting of the fact that I have my own personality and thought. But they're not. But that's what they want, They want somebody who will be there and who will accept the kind of person they are. At the same time, it's the old idea of, like, trying to find that perfect woman. A lot of people say, like, that's what it's based off of. That it's based off the figure, the kind of woman this is, that kind of stuff. That's what really gets people to that level of, like somebody who has a fine body, a cook, and just keeps her mouth shut. That's what some people would say is, like, the perfect woman or something. No. I actually accept imperfections a lot. But that's because I wouldn't look for something perfect, because that wouldn't make sense. Wouldn't need it. I don't need something perfect. All I'd need is somebody who actually wants to be there. It's very different, It's not something that's generally liked, because people don't really think that way. People don't think in a sedentary mode. They act in a sedentary mode, of course, but they never think in that way. Like, you don't think about, hey, I'm sitting down right now for a long time. Why is that? Nope. I mean, it's your right. You don't have to. You don't have to consider things that way. That's fine, but it doesn't mean it's not happening that way. That's what I meant by, like, those kind of things. I think that's what I see in like a lot of what the world is. It's shadows, shadows. How strange that the past could cast such deep shadows on the future. And it can, and not only that, it can be used against the future, to change a future, to make a future bad. All you need to do is look at things like Paula Deen and all the things that are happening right now. That was over 20 years ago. Literally. But we're bringing it up now because they want to, it's the old idea of, here's the catcher's mitt, but the ball's over there. It means that there's something else going on that people are not going to pay attention to at all. People say, well, no, they don't do that. They tell us everything they're doing. They haven't a lot of times before. But they're doing it for our benefit. A lot of stuff that's happening is not even for our benefit. So you're saying your sons and daughters dead after the war, there's a benefit in that? Just saying. Just saying, there's a benefit in that because they were part of your family. They weren't a part of, just America. They were part of your family right there. But that's how bad it gets in the families, in that people will accept a subjective or very object verse of what a human is. So they'll accept that somebody else can use them for them. And they'll allow that. And I think that's what really is the discontentment of our world right now, is that people don't want to see the value in things, because once they do, they have some attachment to it. So it makes it easier for a lot of parents to treat their kids like shit. And it makes it easier for people to accept that people will die in wars and stuff like that, and you can look at everything. And I think that's why people would have a laziness or boredness, because they're not taking the time to look at something deeper. But it's because they don't want to. It's because if they do, they'll look at something so deep that they'll have an attachment to it. And I think that's one of the big differences within what living is. In that a lot of people would use like what they have in the relationship or with a relationship to discredit or give a credit to somebody. And I think like those kind of things, the kind of, I guess, atmosphere that creates that kind of, I don't know if it's fear, but it creates some kind of shadow box of what is happening. Like if I were to say that my relationship with my family is, or if I was going to bring up certain things, I would always have to look at why. Like, why would I bring this up? There has to be a reason why. And there is. There is reasons why, but will I know all the answers? No. Would I need to? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe I wouldn't need to know the answers, because the answers aren't really the point. What matters is where the point goes. Like, hey, Marcello, do you think this is important? Yes. Do I think it's important that gifts aren't frivolous? Of course. But I also think that the material substance is so ingrained that it's very hard to see what else is there. Significance or not. What else is there, And guessing and knowing is a long road. Do I think that's important? Yes. There's a long dark tunnel between that. And a lot of people don't even care about guessing or knowing. They let somebody else guess or know for them. Sadly. I think it's important that you do that on your own at least. But a lot of people would use that against you and say, well, you got that information from somebody else. No, I didn't. I got it from my own personal life, and I've seen people do it. You think I'm going to ignore that? I can't. It's happening every second. You're telling me to ignore something that's happening every second? I'm not going to be like that. I may fail in life, and the old idea of being called a martyr, or being, you sacrificed yourself in vain. Well, no, I didn't. I sacrificed myself because no one else was willing to. That's it. I didn't sacrifice myself in vain at all. If I sacrificed myself in vain, I wouldn't be here today. I would have been dead. I wouldn't have lived. I wouldn't have been able to survive at all, because I would have sacrificed myself in vain. That's, because some people use that term, to use the terminology to try to justify that you're doing something based on, trying to just get your way. Actually, I'm not. I need to get away. And sometimes you need to sacrifice yourself just to do it. Nobody else is going to sacrifice themselves or tell the truth or be honest with themselves. So you have to sacrifice your damn self. And that's what's happening with all these wars and everything. It's because no one else is willing to say the truth, willing to be honest. And the only ones with the biggest voice in the world that gets national attention is us. So who's the biggest liars? It's obviously not the other countries that are lying. We don't even know what they're saying. If they are lying, we don't even know that. And I think that's the difference between what our characterization of what we think the world is versus what it really is happening. And when I look at it that way and see the kind of things that are happening, you split the two rocks with a single blow or more. It's what they don't talk about, people in secrets, and if a person can't tell you they're fulfilled or not, and all these ideas that are coming out, and seeing how my mom and my grandma and Mamina are, and just looking at all these things and seeing what matters, seeing what's there, and seeing about the shadows, the past coming back, all this stuff really justifies or signifies what is happening. There's no resurgence because people are scared to resurge. People are very scared. Not only scared, they're fearful. But they live in hope that things are going to change. Well, nothing's going to change if you're going to live in hope all the time. Nothing's going to change if you live in fear all the time. If you're not willing to sacrifice yourself, whether somebody else says it's in vain or calls you a martyr or any other names, any other labels that are just labels. They're just bullying labels, and bullying labels are always going to be that. They're not going to be anything else. Bullying labels and revenge are just going to be the spectrum of life unless you change that. And so I quit. And love you so. But I don't quit. I keep and go. Love.